This guy's life potentially has been ruined now because of overzealous policing of trowels. Hey everyone, I hope you're well. I'm Ross and this is Grow Your Own Life, and if you've been watching for a while you know that I talk about lots of things on this channel. It's a channel about my hobbies and interests and how I try and get out and about with a disability and keep myself sane. Now, I almost made this video a few months ago, but I decided not to do it because I thought, you know what, people will have a go at me and say I'm being, dramatic again. Nothing's going to happen. But then I read this article on the news yesterday and thought, I really wish I'd have made this video. So stick with me. I'm going to keep it short, but hopefully I'm going to help you not get arrested gardening. Not long ago, the UK government changed its laws about regarding knives and what you can carry. And in the UK, we can only carry certain things of a certain length. And I am not going to get into the legality and all the regulations about this because I am not a lawyer and I'm not a solicitor. I just know how to keep me safe and I know what I do to make sure I'm safe. And I do have a little bit of experience in this because I do bushcraft and I've also been a scout leader, and I've taken knives on trains and axes and other things, and I've taken knives and axes out into the woods with kids, and I've done the risk assessments and I've ticked all the boxes. This was a fair few years ago. So I know what to do, and I'm just going to try and impart a little bit of that wisdom onto you. And this all comes because a guy has basically been arrested by armed police and charged because he was carrying home basically his horry and a small sickle. That's it. I know. I kid you not. Now, earlier on in the year, when the UK changed the law, I had a few implements that fell foul of the law. For instance, they've changed the law now that say blades can't have holes in and things like that. Now, I had some old knives and stuff that had holes in. They weren't antiques or anything, but they were just things I'd had for hacking down brambles and stuff around the allotment. And in the fishing clubs I'm in, a lot of the people in the fishing clubs have machetes and things for hacking through brambles, because obviously the river's closed down and then the river's open again and you have to open up the pegs. So machetes, big knives, things like that, they're used in sickles and scythes, and they're used quite a lot in gardening. A lot of us gardeners have them. I have several sickles and scythes and machetes tucked away safely in sheds and things. But they're handy. When you've got thorny bushes and things, you don't want to be getting in there. If you can hack them with a sickle or a scythe or a machete or something, it's the perfect tool for the job. And it is a tool, it's not a weapon. So anyway, the UK government changed its laws, and I decided that I was going to give away, they basically did an amnesty, any bladed articles that fell foul of the law you could get rid of. And I did that, and I thought, I know, I'm going to make a video about this so gardeners don't fall foul of the rules. Now, this gardener in particular, he hasn't fall foul of the rules. I would argue that he's fell foul of the police. Like many people do, the police are over-eager to always convict, and they cause more problems with themselves. And this guy, I'm going to read the story out now, he has basically been scapegoated out because he's a gardener by some police who clearly just wanted to get an arrest, to tick a sheet on a box, and it's absolutely shocking. And you could fall foul of it too, if you're not careful. So this article is in the Guardian, and I will put the link below so you can read it in full. I'm just going to quote a few bits. So there's a man who returned home from his allotment with a truck of vegetables and gardening tools strapped to his belt, was arrested by armed police after members of the public had seen him wearing a khaki clothing and in possession of a knife. And this is what he was wearing. This is what he was wearing. I mean, this is typical Karen behaviour, but then rather than the police being logical and sensible and rocking up, they then go and do this. So he got home and he was on his doorstep. I just heard shouting behind me, and then two armed officers shouting at me, "Drop the knife," he said. And then they turned me around, pushed me against the house, cuffed me, and then they arrested me, put me in the back of the van. The tools he had in his belt, he said, were a horry gardening trowel and a canvas sheath and an ice bear Japanese gardening sickle. Now, I have a Wilkinson Swords horry here in a pouch. That's what he had. Now, this is interesting because the police questioned him. They asked him if he was autistic, which I think is absolutely disgraceful. What's that got any bearing on anything? Again, you'll have to read this article yourself because I don't want to take away from the journalist who wrote this. But then they go on and basically pressurise the guy into accepting a caution. So I was taken to the police station and questioned. I was asked questions, asked if I was like autistic or anything, asking me whether I'd been in the army or whether I told people I was in the army. I was obviously in shock and struggling to think straight, struggling to talk properly because I was pretty scared. I was answering the questions honestly whenever they asked, and because I hadn't done anything wrong, in my mind. And that's the problem. And this is the bit where I'm going to help you. I hope you're going to help you. Don't talk to the police. Do not talk to the police. The only time you legally have to talk to the police to identify yourself is if you're in control of a motor vehicle for insurance reasons, to make sure you're the owner of that car, etc. If the police come up to you in the street and they want to ask you questions about your gardening equipment, politely say, "Am I being detained? No, thank you very much, officer," and walk away, and don't engage. And that's it. They also go on in here to say that they couldn't find him a solicitor, so he had to do all of his interviews on his own, and then they persuaded him to take a caution. So he's going to have that caution on the rest of his life because he spoke to police. If he'd have just shut up, said nothing, no comment, officer, no comment, I want to speak to my solicitor, no comment, I want to speak to my solicitor, no comment, I want to speak to my solicitor. That's all you should say. This poor man is 35 years old, and he's accepted caution essentially for a knife offence. That will be on his record now, I believe. I'm sure in comments below tell me if that's not the case. But I'm pretty sure that if you want to work with children or vulnerable people, they do a massively detailed background check. And I'm almost positive that if you have a caution for a weapons offence, you are not going to be able to work with kids or vulnerable people. This guy's life potentially has been ruined now because of overzealous policing of trowels. Basically, if you're caught now, it seems to be with the police with a blade, they're going to arrest you and they're going to try and badger you into a caution so they get a conviction on their tick sheet. Now, that's absolutely ridiculous. And as I've said to you before, I've done bushcraft and stuff, and I've taken knives and axes and all sorts on trains, as you're legally allowed to do. If you've got a purpose for them, if you've got a genuine reason for having them, this guy was going down to his allotment to do gardening. He had a genuine reason to have those on his person. Now, there's one bit he falls foul of here, and this is why you shouldn't have said anything to police and why you probably needed a solicitor. He had them on his belt, so they were possibly view of the public, and that obviously scares people. And that's where the problem is. People have been scared, called the police have been overzealous. The police should have calmed the whole situation down, realised that it was gardening stuff, given the guy a warning of like, mate, this is how you do it, and everything should have been honky-dory and fine, no harm done. Because what we were always told in bushcrafting, scouts and everything else is if you're carrying knives and if you're carrying axes, see my last video, this is my spruce brow axe, which I used to take the branches off the tree I just felled. That was down my allotment the other day, and that went in a bag. And what you do is, if you're taking axes, you're taking knives, you're taking anything sharp on public transport, out in the public, you bury it deep in the bottom of your bag. You put it right in the bottom, you put your jumpers, your lunchbox, everything on top of it. And if the police come up to you and they come to you and say, we've had a report that you've got a knife, make sure they turn their body camera on, make sure you film it, which is also your right, and say to them, that's fine, officer, please search my bag if you feel the need, right? Tell me where that knife was. If that knife, that axe, that trowel is not easily accessible, if it's in the bottom of your bag, it's not easy to get hold of. They have absolutely no grounds. It's not an offensive weapon. How can it be an offensive weapon if you can't access it quickly to offend? Do you see? You're transporting that item, that axe, that bladed trowel, whatever the police have got to be in their bonnet over that day, you are transporting it safely from one place to another for its intended use, to use on your allotment, in your garden, whatever you're using it for, as long as it's legit. So please, people, if you're going to your allotment on public transport, if you're going anywhere with your garden tools, bits of advice, bury them deep in your bag so people can't see them. That way they're out of reach. Wrap them up if you can in towels. People who are chefs, chefs are travelling around all the time. I've got friends who are chefs. I've got family members of chefs. They're taking knives everywhere. They wrap them up and they put them in the bottom of the bag. They just look like a rolled blanket that goes in the bottom of the bag. Do the same for your bladed items if you go into your allotment. It will save you the hassle of getting police cautions. And secondly, if you are unfortunate enough to be arrested by the police when you are going to your allotment with a bladed item, do not speak to the police. Speak to your solicitor and nobody else. Don't tell them anything. Absolutely anything. They will badger you and they will say things to you. Well, if you're innocent, you'll talk to us. But remember, they are trying to catch you out. They are trying to get you to incriminate yourself. They are trying to get you to slip up and say something that they can then pin something on you and they can get a little tick in their box. Don't let them do it. You have an absolute right to say nothing to the police, so use it.